Welcome to Minnesota Rover's Tuesday evening presentation. Minnesota Rovers is an outdoors club based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Our members organize trips that range from 1 hour to 2 weeks in Minnesota or further afield. Examples of our activities include hiking, biking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, paddling, and rock climbing. We also organize conservation and trail clearing trips. Our members have experience and skills in many outdoor activities, so if you want to learn a new outdoor activity, we can probably help you. For more information, go to minrovers.org. And now let's get into this Tuesday evening presentation.
Tonight, we have Karen back. Karen is giving another presentation on the ongoing adventures of a roving rover. Karen volunteers as a national parks ranger and has been, I think, gone through about 4 different placements at really great national parks and has presented on us before. Most recently, she was at Hawaii's Volcanoes National Park, and she's going to talk to us and show us pictures of erupting volcanoes and earthquakes and a rock slide and living in a rainforest and hiking and enjoying the flora and the fauna. She's also going to tell us a little bit about how you can get involved in volunteering at different national parks. And so take it away, Karen.
Thanks, Fran. Okay. So thank you. And as Fran said, this is actually my 5th assignment at parks. I've been doing this now since 2018, 19. And Volcanoes National Park is where we went this time. And I have to do a few disclaimers before this. I'm not a volcanologist, so if any of you listening are, I apologize in advance. Everything I'm going to tell you is what I've learned about volcanoes, but if you're a volcanologist, you might have refinements on that. And also, I learned some Hawaiian language when I was there, so I hopefully will be okay on my pronunciations, but it's a tricky language, so if anyone's a native speaker, I ask for your patience with that too. And then because people ask sometimes, all of the pictures are taken with a iPhone 14. And the telephoto lens on it is quite amazing, as you can see from this picture on the left. So my partner Doug and I were at Volcanoes National Park from about mid-November to mid-January. And our job there was traffic control. So this was a new I'm trying to figure out here why I can't. Oops, okay. So this was a new assignment for us. So when I start a presentation, I like to start with where it is. So it was on the Big Island in Hawaii. And the thing to know about the Big Island is basically it's the newest island, and it's made up of 5 volcanoes. And can you see my cursor on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the 5 volcanoes are Mauna Loa, and Mauna Loa is this whole big area here. So it basically takes up a little over half of the island. And then up here, there's Hualale and Kohala, and those 2 are pretty much, they've not been real active. And then there's Mauna Kea, which also has not been as active. Mauna Loa and then Kilauea down here have been the 2 active volcanoes. So it's an island of 5 volcanoes. The other thing to note about it is this white that goes around the island, and then this white that goes through the island. Those are the only major roads on the island. So if you're on this side of the island, you either drive around the island or you drive through this road, which is basically known as a saddle road because you're going through through the saddle of the Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea ranges. And then this is a different view. Oops. Wanted to show you this whole piece here. So a good chunk of the island, that's Volcanoes National Park. So the park includes some of Mauna Loa and then all of this area down here. And then this is where the visitor center is. And this little spot right here, I want to highlight because in this is the Kilauea caldera, and more specifically, the Halemaumau crater. And this Kilauea caldera came about in the 2018 eruption that happened there. And a caldera forms because all this magma is holding up the earth. And then when it erupts and it starts moving down, the earth suddenly, the crust has nothing that's holding it up and it collapses. So this is a large caldera that now sits here, and the Halemaumau crater was a part of that. So a deep hole, this crater here is about 400 feet deep. So I'm telling you that because it's going to come up later in the presentation. I'm also just going to mention this Kilauea Iki crater. This was created in a 1959 eruption. And because it's no longer erupting, there's a great hike here that allows you to go through, and you're basically walking on the floor of a volcano, and you get to see all the formations in it. So if you ever get to the park, highly recommend that hike. So our job at the park was traffic control. So our job was basically you monitored parking lots, and often, there were times that we'd have to close the lots because they were full, just like other national parks. So explaining to people where they went. And when we were in the parking lots, you parked cars. And I'm going to tell all of you something you may not know about when you go into a lot and someone's going to park your car and they say, hey, park here. It was amazing the number of visitors that, for whatever reason, decided that that spot wasn't a good one, and then were so disappointed that there were no other spots available, and then would kind of tell you that you should create a spot. So it's like, if you're ever in a parking lot, take the spot offer. The other thing about the job in the parking lot is that you gave visitors information. They often had gotten a map at the fee station when they came in, so they'd jump out of their car and they'd say, hey, how do I get here? So it was a good multitasking job because you'd stand there directing traffic with one hand and telling them, oh, this is what you want to do. And the whole time you want to keep your eyes on the cars because they might knock you over if you didn't. So it was a good lesson that way. And then as rovers, you would appreciate this, when the parking lots weren't busy, we drove the trails. We basically walked the trails, and the job there was, again, you're giving people information, just seeing what's going on. And oftentimes you were talking about safety, because at Volcanoes National Park, there is a lot of off trail. There's a lot of cracks in the earth. There's a lot of, there could be steam. There might be steam vents, so it's hot air coming up. So there's a lot of places that people get in danger, and you kind of invite them gently to come back on the trail and take that way. And then the other thing that Doug and I did, and we always do this at parks, is pick up trash when we had extra time, because as you know, there's always some of that to do. But one of the fun things in this middle picture here, if you notice on this porch, all these little shoes, there's all little kids' shoes. And this was in park housing. And when we first lived there, we'd drive by this house or walk by it, and it was all these kids' shoes, and we're always like, where's the kids? Well, we finally found out it was the maintenance office. So we stopped by one day, and all of these shoes were collected as just miscellaneous shoes that show up in the park, poor kids that go home with one shoe. And it was always, they said, well, it's always the badge of honor when you find a shoe and can add it to the porch. And before we left the park, we added our shoe to the porch. So they were one of the team. So some of my favorite things was, first of all, the volcanoes erupting. We saw two major eruptions when we were there, and I'll certainly talk about more of that. The job was all outdoors, and we were really fortunate. The park is actually in a rainforest, and it actually rains quite a bit. But during the time we were there, they were actually in kind of a time of a drought. So we did not have many rainy days. We had gorgeous days to enjoy the outdoors. It was bringing order to chaos. Oftentimes when we get to the parking lot in the morning, there were cars everywhere and this, that going on. And then in short order, you'd put up the cones, you'd get the traffic flow going, and it was like your job was set for the day. You just kept that going. So that was always fun to do. And then, of course, the volcanoes erupted. And then there was great hiking, both in the park proper and then in the backcountry in the park. So a lot of that. The beauty of the lava, that is the thing that I was just amazed at. That, you know, people always want to see red lava, it's flowing, but it's actually the lava that has flowed and settled. That was, I'll be showing some pictures of that. But those volcanoes erupted and it was fun to see. And then assisting visitors, it's always fun. And, you know, especially because we were in the parking lot for several hours, we would share with people some things to do. And many people came back and would thank us and say how great it was, and they really appreciated it. So it was a very rewarding job that way. And then the last thing is, when you go to a park and you work, you really have time to explore the park. That, you know, most of the time, I don't know about you, but you're visiting a national park, you might be there for a week. But when you're there for 2 months, you really get to see a lot of things that are accessible in the park, but you run out of time. So I just love that. And of course, those volcanoes erupted. So the first part of the presentation is going to be all about volcanoes, because that was quite something. So when we got to the park, I would call it Kilauea Part 1. And we knew that the Kilauea volcano had been erupting since September of 2021. But it wasn't a big eruption. It's in this left-hand picture here. And basically it formed that Halemaumau crater I showed you. The reason I showed you that is that in that crater, the eruption was basically a little lava lake. But at night it would glow nicely. You can see it was beautiful to look at. During the day, there was some steam that came off of it, but you never saw the glow during the day. And this is actually Doug and our first night there, so excited to see it. But it was like, okay, but of course it was the first lava we had ever seen, so it was the coolest thing ever until Mauna Loa came along. So before we left, Mauna Loa was being talked about. And just to give you some perspective, Mauna Loa is actually the largest active volcano on the earth. From the very bottom of the seafloor to the top of Mauna Loa is a little, 33,500 feet. And then from above sea level, it's almost 14,000 feet. And then below sea level, it's almost another 20,000 feet. So it's huge. And that's why it takes up half the island. So the USGS, which is the United States Geological Society, they started monitoring Mauna Loa more closely in October, because it was signs of the seismic activity was increasing. There's something called tilt that was moving. There was tremors. And they actually met with the residents, because on that first map that I showed you, Mauna Loa, and I mentioned the going down on the south side of Mauna Loa is actually quite steep. The slope on the north side is more gentle. And these types of volcanoes, they're called shield volcanoes. When they erupt, they don't blast off like Mount St. Helens does. The lava shoots out, and it might come out in a fountain, or it might come out a little more slowly, but then it's pulled, the lava basically goes by gravity. It takes the path of least resistance. If it had come out and gone down the south side, there's houses, businesses, lots of things there. And the USGS had calculated that the first buildings it would get to, it could be within an hour of erupting that those buildings would be covered with lava. So that's why they met with residents, and everyone had go bags. We actually had go bags in case something happened, that it's what you would take if you had to evacuate. The good news is when it did erupt, it went down the north side, which was not inhabited. So much more fortunate. So it was one of those things that was fascinating to see, because it was the first time it erupted in 38 years, and nothing was, no harm was being done to people or structures. So it was a giddy time for the scientists. But while we were there, before anything happened, we started feeling like quick little earthquakes, like the house would just go, and sometimes they'd be a little stronger. But it was like, oh, that's, I had never felt an earthquake before, so it was a whole new experience. And then on November 27th, Mauna Loa erupted, and it stayed active for about 15 days, and then it just stopped. So, but during that time, these next slides, I'm just going to show you pictures of what Mauna Loa looked like, because it's kind of like watching a campfire. It's just fascinating to see, and depending on the time of day and the clouds, and I thought you would just like to get a sense of what that would be like. So this was day one. And on day one, so it erupted 11:30 the day before. So this was day one. We got there kind of at sunset. And the first day we actually went up to, if you remember, Mauna Loa is here, Mauna Kea is here. So we actually drove up Mauna Kea, and we were looking across at Mauna Loa. And this first day, it was really up at the top of, of Mauna Loa, where the, it was coming out the vent, it was fountaining there. This was over 100 feet tall. We're a few miles away, so it doesn't look that way, but this is flowing up. Here you can see it's just starting to flow down towards the north. So this was the first day of what we saw. And then I'm just going to run through some pictures of what started happening. This, as you can see now, this is the downward flow of the lava as it's moving down the hill. And just different times. This picture reminds me of Lord of the Rings and going to the Fire of Doom to throw in the ring. Whenever I see this picture, I'm always like, oh my gosh, there it is. You can see Bilbo. So, and just different, the sky and the colors that would come out were just amazing. And then it would change some, like now you see this was actually a fountain going off. So this was fountaining probably 100 feet or so. This was a fissure, so it was a crack in the earth where the lava was coming out, and this was feeding the flows. So it was fed by different things going on, but you could see it differently. And then this is further when it was coming down further. I'm trying to think, I want to say this is probably a couple miles of what you're looking at, 2 to 3 miles. So it's quite a ways coming down the hill. And then this is as the day in the waning days, it basically was coming from here and had kind of split into two main pathways and then joining back again. The one concern about it was that remember I told you that major road, the saddle road that went between Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea, that's one of the two ways to get over to the other side of the island? It was heading down towards the road. And it was 1.6 miles from the road. And this is where it finally stopped. But I mean, 1.6 miles is not a whole lot of distance. This is actually the side of the road here. So that was a big concern because it was obviously, if it started flowing across the road, that presented a whole different set of challenges. And then this, for a while, this didn't last long, but oops, this was the north, coming down north. And then there was this little branch that went off to the northwest and shone for a while. And then this is how you watch a volcano. Because first of all, it's about 6,000 feet. And so it was kind of cold. So you didn't want to just stand out there. So they had a road that you could go and you park your car. So we would go and park the car, and as you can see, on this night, I had a beer, a little popcorn, and it was kind of like sitting by the campfire and just watching, because it would flare up and flare down, and just different kind of fun. So, and then these next two videos are from a native Hawaiian that we met in the park, and they actually gave us these videos because obviously they are very close. They are probably 50 to 100 yards to the lava. And that would not be a sanctioned event, but part of Hawaiian culture, Pele is the goddess of the volcano. And many native Hawaiians honor Pele by bringing her offerings, and especially when a volcano is happening, they want to bring an offering. So this person, a few of them went out to make an offering. And this is actually, it's called tea, it's a tea tree. So these are the leaves from the tree. And this is wrapped around, there's some food in here. And then this cord was actually braided from the leaves. So they went out, hiked out to the, very close to the volcano to put this offering. And then, so this is a video of what the offering, and you'll see a little bit. And then I have a second video I'm going to show you. And you'll hear the sounds of the volcano, of the lava and the burning. And then this is the wall. You know how in the pictures it looks like it's just flat. It isn't flat, as you will see. This is like 20, 25 feet tall of just molten rock. Are you hearing the sound?
No, we don't hear the sound.
Oh.
It's an option when you share screen for it to play the sound.
Okay, well, sorry about that. Because the sound, it's really cool. But anyway, but that to see these up close was really something, and to understand like how massive it was. So then on day 17, by that time, things were done. So the USGS shared this photo from the top of Mauna Loa. And this really surprised me, how quickly the earth starts cooling and it goes back to the black crust. That like once the lava stops spewing from the earth, it just turns gray again and everything starts cooling down. So they shared this photo. So then, inquiring minds wanted to know. Doug and I decided by day 24 that we had kind of made some inquiries and found out that, yeah, things are probably cooled down enough that you could go out and see what's out there. So we hiked out to see what new lava looked like. And so this picture here, as we were hiking out, this whole wall was that the wall that was lit up in that video. This is kind of what that looked like. And then this lava right here is really rough. It's called lava. You don't want to hike on it if you can avoid it. I mean, it rips up your shoes. It very sharp, can cut you. So we walked around that to walk over to the wall here. What is fascinating to me, this is old lava. This was not from the new flow. And sometimes this old lava just lays down and it basically looks like tar. It looks like someone went out and just laid down a whole bunch of tar. And that's what it was. But this picture in the upper right, this is actually what it looked like up close. Just rocks spewed from the earth. So it was really a fascinating thing to see. And, like any good person, of course, we did the selfie in front of it. And this wall was about 25 feet tall. So that was our Mauna Loa experience. And then we went on to Kilauea, because Kilauea is actually one of the most active volcanoes on the earth. And it has been erupting off and on forever. Like what, even spoken history talks about eruptions on Kilauea. But Mauna Loa had stopped erupting on December 13th. Kilauea stopped erupting on December 15th, which meant there was no active lava in the park over the holidays. And of course, people are coming to the park and they're like, well, where's the lava? And it's like, well, it's everywhere. No, the red lava. And they're like, can't you find some? And it's like, nope, you can't find some. It's a Mother Nature thing. So New Year's came and went. And then that first week of January, there started again being a lot of little earthquakes. The other thing we noticed is just watching the Kilauea, the Halemaumau crater, it was steaming a lot more. It looked different. And that was kind of surprising to me. It was like, something's going on, when we were having these discussions is, gee, it looks different. And sure enough, on January 5th, it erupted again. And so we heard about it right away. And so within 45 minutes, we were actually at a viewing site that was about a mile from the volcano. And what was amazing is we stood there and we watched a lava lake grow. So this picture to the left is when we started noticing more steam and it just looked different. When we got to the lava lake, that first, within those 45 minutes, this is what it looked like. It was now about 5 p.m. And there were several spots already. This was going to start fountaining. This was going to be fountaining. There was some red glowing here. So we started watching this. And what we saw over the course of that evening is from these few spots, this crater filled into a 277-acre lava lake. This fountain would be fountaining 164 feet in the air was the highest it went. These were fountaining. And it was really it was a full, all your senses were engaged because so much was happening and we were close enough, you could feel the heat of it, you could hear it. And then also, as we're standing on this viewing, it was just basically standing up the hill here. And this is once it had gotten dark, we suddenly heard and started seeing smoke and realizing there was a landslide, a rock slide. And it was like, kind of looked around at some of the other park employees that were there in addition to visitors, but like the park employees, we all looked at each other like, okay, exactly where did that happen? And are we still safe? Is everyone still safe here, or do we need to do something? And we figured out, it's like, nope, we're safe. It was on the other side of the crater, over here. So, or it's all good. But it was such a remarkable experience. And as we were there, this guy we were standing next to had this super duper camera type thing. And he said, hey, do you really want to see what this lava looks like up close? And we said, sure. He said, well, why don't you put your iPhone on my, I'll put your iPhone here and I'll take some video for you. So you're going to see the first video I'm going to show. This is just it was taken from the lava fountaining and how the lava is moving. And oh, no, you won't. Unfortunately, what's interesting, there was also some talking going on about what was happening and where it was flowing. But this is all just the lava. It looks like water, but it's those huge boulders that I showed you in the other picture. That was just amazing to see. So that was the lava. And then this one, what I want you to pay attention to is these dark spots. This was all crust. That when I showed you that lava that was gray and was not molten, this was all crust. And in this one, you'll see these crust undulating and falling into the lava. So, and those little spatters, they look like little spatters. They're not little spatters. They could be the size of your head. So, I mean, that's the thing, it's always a perception because you're further away. But it was just such an amazing thing to see. And then by the later in the evening, this is what it looked like. This is now 277 acres of a lava lake. All of this, this was just a couple different times in the evening. But again, the fountaining happened in a few different places. And then all of this where it's shining, basically the fissures formed, like the earth just separated and lava was oozing out. So, I mean, it was one of those amazing things that I'll probably never see again, but just wanted to try to give you a little experience of that. And then this is those lava fountains. Remember, I told you it was going up to 164 feet tall, and it would like go up really tall, and then it would be this spectacular, it would go down, and then all these droplets. So it's like if you ever, maybe in a park or something, you see a water fountain go up and all the water comes down. I mean, that's what it looked like but it was just so amazing to see. So that's all my lava. Oh, and then this is the other thing about this particular eruption that's exciting for the park. This is actually what it looked like the next day. And usually, like, Kilauea Part 1, you didn't see lava during the day. here, because it was erupting so much, and it's actually still, I keep track of it, it's not as big. It's gone down to about 25, 30 acres, but there's still parts of it you can see during the day. To actually see red lava during the day is very unusual. So it was quite a time at the park. And then, I showed you the one video where they had actually brought an offering to Pele. What some Hawaiians also do, instead of an offering, they come to the volcanic crater and offer a traditional hula dance. And we did get permission to take this picture, but these were two teenagers, basically were there with their family. And we had talked with them some, and it was a wonderful experience because their family actually sang some chants to Pele in Hawaiian. And then these two girls did a traditional Hawaiian hula dance to honor Pele. So a great experience. And then there's other things that come along with lava. One of them being Pele's hair. And if you see in the middle here, this is just a strand of, it's basically glass. As it explodes, little pieces kind of get stretched out on the wind, and then they float off. And so usually you may notice them in the front of the park. You might, if the sun catches on it, because you don't see much. This Pele's hair we were in the back country, and this is actually was also in the back country. You see it blew and got caught in cracks. It's actually highly dangerous. It's one of the things even when Kilauea is erupting, the park is always aware of which way the winds are blowing and if there's Pele's hair noticeable in the air, because what you don't want to do is ingest it. If you get it a little piece in your lungs, they can't get it out. And obviously that's not a good thing. But it's beautiful, and the sun just shines on it, and it's just golden shimmering. And then lava tubes. So in this case, Kilauea was just this was just a lava lake. In the past, I had told you that Halemaumau crater came about because Kilauea had collapsed into that crater, and because the lava had gone away. Well, sometimes the lava will move over or under the earth. And when it's moving over the earth, if it's moving quickly, what happens is it's moving, and sometimes the source of that lava at the very top goes away. So now the lava is still moving down because gravity is taking it down. But like I said, that outer lava starts cooling pretty quickly. So sometimes the outer lava, the layers, it cools from the crust that's visible downward. Well, it cools, but you still have all that hot lava, which is like 2,200 degrees, still moving down. So sometimes what you get is these lava tubes. It's like this lava had kept moving down, but it basically, because the upper had cooled down and it was being put down this tube, that when everything's said and done and everything's cooled off, it's kind of like caves, but they're basically formed out of lava. And so this is just the inside of them. They're fascinating to look at, and I don't know how well that shows up in the photo. Like this first photo on the left, this whole piece here was like an iridescent gold, and it just has to do with the minerals. All of these stones, it looked, and especially here in the wall, it looked like someone had come in and glazed them all brown. And, again, it's depending on the minerals, and it's so hot, it's kind of like throwing pottery in a kiln and you put a glazing on it. And as you can tell, it's, I'm standing here just for perspective. This was easily 20, 25, 30 feet tall. So they're big, can be big areas. And here you can see from the floor that the lava just kept flowing down and, splashed up some, came down, and then finally settled at this level. And this just fascinates me because it all looks glazed, but it literally ended in drips. It's like you were dripping something and those drips were just frozen in time. So it was they're just fun to explore. This one was like 2-3 miles long. You could just hike through it. Then just showing you some lava formations, like when you're out hiking and about, these are just different types of things, when the lava is frozen and this is what it looks like. This one, I have to say, I grew up in Maine, and this rock here, when you looked at it really close, this reminds me of like seaweed I would find on the beach as a little kid. So I was particularly partial to this. These we call chocolate drips. You find them in different places. They're glazed, but it literally looks like someone melted chocolate and just kind of left it hanging. And then the colors. This is all highly glazed, and then over time you can see where the rock cracked open, but you see the color inside. And then here, this iridescent color that you see, and here, this rock, this iridescent color that you see. What's really amazing about this is those colors aren't in the rock, but because there's so much glass in the rock, the sun shining on the rock reflects back. The eye sees these beautiful iridescent colors. So that's kind of cool. And then this last piece was just a piece of rock that was just sitting there with the rocks. And it was just like, look at that. It's kind of like an artist had gone out and made a sculpture there. So, and then just some more. So I had talked about the lava, which is a really rough. Hoy lava is really smooth and ropey, and it happens when the lava is flowing. The lava flow is not as fast, and it strings out. But if you just look at it and all the different shapes it ends up into, or like this, to me again, it looked like someone was putting together some sort of artistry. I was so taken by these that, and the color that comes with it too. And on this page, this whole piece, you could tell at one time was a ledge, and obviously this had fallen down, but it was just so beautiful. And it was like the landscape we were walking through was a whole bunch of this. So lovely. And then this picture I threw in here because I didn't know where else to put in here, and I just wanted to talk about it 1 second. Yes, if any of you are thinking, gee, do you know that person? Yes, you do. It's Pam Trainer. Pam and Gary Carlson actually were vacationing on the Big Island, and we had the privilege of taking a hike with them. But if you notice that Pam and I look like we are both walking very quickly out of this area, we were, because one of the things when you go off trail with lava, it might not be stable. When I was talking about those lava tubes, you can have big lava tubes. You can also have small ones. So you can be walking along and suddenly your foot can collapse through. And this rock we were walking on, it sounded like you were walking on glass. Like every foot was. So the both of us decided to spread out and move on as quickly as possible. But it's just, those are all the fun things about lava and walking on it. So, and then there's also lava trees. And lava trees, so all of these pieces of dark that you see in this photo were all at one time, they were trees. And some of them were very big trees that were, because this was actually a very treed area before this lava flow happened in May of '73. And what happens with lava trees is that lava comes flowing along and there's trees. And so the lava will wrap around the trees. But then, if you remember what I said, that sometimes the lava, once the lava flow, it's like the lava continues to flow. Well, that upper crust might collapse. Well, and that's what it did here, it collapsed. But because those trees were there and this lava had wrapped around those trees, and the trees typically have enough moisture that they don't burn up right away, that you're left with what are called lava trees. And they're just beautiful, these beautiful sculptures that come about. And like all of these, we went and looked at the top. There's a hole in the top where you can see where the tree was. I think this looked like the head of some bird or something. I was quite taken by it. This here, I don't know that it shows up well in the photograph, but in looking at this rock, you could actually see the bark of the tree on it. It was imprinted with the bark of the tree before the tree burnt up. And then this one is actually a couple of lava trees that have fallen over, and you see the holes where the trees were. And some of these, you know, this one, I'm in this picture just to show you perspective. This tree was literally about 15, had to be about 15 feet tall. So just beautiful. Sorry about that. Okay, so just beautiful formations. And that's why I said that, you know, the lava itself, even when it's cold and in stone, is just offers its own kind of beauty. The other thing that also you have tree molds. So tree molds happen when there's a tree in the ground, lava comes along, poof, the tree burns up, but the base of the tree hangs on because of moisture. And then over time, the tree dies and kind of goes back to the earth. And so you can be out hiking and you come along these holes. So you again have to be careful of it. And you can see, you know, this picture here, you can see this foot, you can see how big this tree was. And so they're also just an interesting phenomena. And what this is in the middle, again, you could see actually the bark of the tree was put in the tree mold itself. So all sorts of things with lava. So now I'm going to do a changeover and talk about the Ohia lehu tree. Lehu tree. This is probably one of the most popular trees in Hawaii. One of the things about this tree is it grows, it's probably one of the first plants that comes back after lava has flowed. And it's been around forever, and there's actually a Hawaiian legend about it. I'll quickly tell you, Ohia supposedly was a very good-looking man, and he had a thing for lehu. Well, Pele, the goddess of the volcano, was attracted to Ohia, and she was very mad that he wasn't going to be interested in her. So she turned him into this kind of ugly, gnarly tree. Well, Lehu was very heartbroken about this. So she went to all the other gods and said, hey, what can you do? So they decided to turn her into this beautiful flower. So Ohia and Lehu are together now forever. So you hear all sorts of versions of that story. But the tree itself, a couple of fascinating things to me that, first of all, you know, this is how it starts out. So it starts out as a very pretty flower in the lava. And then a couple fascinating things about it. One here, this, you can see it growing in the lava, but you also see these roots. So what this tree does, if it gets stressed or it's not getting enough nutrients it needs, or maybe water or whatever it is from the roots it has in the ground, it grows external roots to get what it needs. This is on the rock, but you will walk through the forest and actually see trees that have these external roots just hanging from them. Then the other thing, and this just is so fascinating to me, because it's one of the first one that grows on lava that has, just come through, there still could be a lot of noxious gases there. And so it has stomata, or their breathing pores. If there's bad gases, it closes its pores until the gases have cleared. So it's not ingesting and is not impacted by the gases. So to me, it's just a fascinating tree, and it's beautiful. And it's, it's a beautiful canopy all over the island. Unfortunately, there is a rapid ohia death that is happening with the trees that they're really trying to combat. But it's a fascinating tree. One of the other plants that we absolutely enjoyed was this, the fern here. It's the pulu fern. And this fern is, it's also known as a walking fern. If you see in the picture here on the left, these branches fall down, and then this whole system of how it kind of comes into being, these fronds grow, they get bigger and bigger, and then eventually come into a fern. The thing is, though, it grows fast. I mean, some of these pictures were taken days apart. It's just fascinating. I don't know, part of the park is rainforest, and this is part of the rainforest. I don't know if that's what it is, but it's fascinating to watch, but it is so pretty. It's a pretty fern. But this pulu is very, very soft. It's like down feathers. And for about 20 years, in the mid 1800s, it was actually used as batting in mattresses and pillows. And it was shipped to Europe. It was shipped all over. But what happened was they realized that it was really soft to start off with, but then after sleeping on it, it quickly got very hard, and it was not, you couldn't get it soft again. So thankfully, in a lot of ways, that industry stopped, because the island is still left with all these beautiful ferns. And then I would have to mention the nenes. The nenes is a Hawaii state bird. It's actually an endangered species. It's actually somehow in the DNA chain, it's related to the Canadian geese. It's a mid-sized goose. And there's a number of them in the park. So the park does what it can to protect the geese. And the thing is, though, there's some good things. Like you can see here, this middle picture, this is a nene nesting. And so their nest, they camouflage themselves pretty well when they're nesting. And oftentimes there's rats and mongoose in the park that would like the nene's nest, the nene's eggs. So that's one of their big predators. But the other thing about them, they're beautiful. Here's a whole stack of them. And yes, there's Doug doing his best nene imitation with the nenes. But here they're at least in the trees, but they like the parking lots. Unfortunately, they've learned that there's food in the parking lots. There's all sorts of things. Don't feed the nenes, but you're dealing with tourists and they like to feed the nenes. But also the nenes don't have a fear of people. In this picture here, this Nene is walking down the sidewalk, and myself and this other woman with this black shoe on, I'm sitting here in the where this bag is. The two of us were sitting on a wall, and we both happened to be having a snack. And this bird just came up very close to both of us, basically walked up to us, kind of looking to give me food. When we didn't, went and scrounged on the sidewalk, in the parking lot. Not good behavior when you want to, keep your species going. And then these nenes actually did have 3 little goslings, and they were adorable. They were little fluff balls. But again, they're walking through the parking lot, and I took this picture because this car was actually on, and they were starting to back up when we said, stop. And these nenes were just like, oh, we're out for a walk. So, I mean, their situational awareness is not real high. So hoping that they will live to see another day. Actually, this family, the resource manager at the park actually relocated this family to a part of the park that did not have parking lots. So they would hopefully grow up to be, grow to adulthood. So that is, that's what I'm going to tell you about the park. I was telling Stacy before this started, it suddenly dawned on me. I said, you know what? We went to Hawaii and I did not have one picture of water in my whole presentation. And I mean, part of it is, it's just, the volcanoes were such a big draw. And I think, an unusual thing that I wanted to share some of that. But there were so many other things that we learned about and things that we did that I could have shared about. So it was kind of like, okay, pick a few things and talk about them. Certainly if you ever get the chance, I would say a visit to the park is well worth it. Now I'm going to turn and talk a little more about volunteering. And so thinking about what, if you wanted to volunteer, some things to think about. Where would you want to go? And I will tell you, Hawaii was not ever on my list of, I want to go volunteer in a park in Hawaii. As a matter of fact, Doug and I already had an assignment for 2023. We're leaving on Saturday to go to Chaco Cultural Historical National Park for a couple months. And so we already had an assignment for 2023, but, we looked at volunteer.gov and it was like, Hawaii, that might be interesting. It's like, okay, let's think about it. And that's the way that happened. And part of it is, what do you want to do and not do? And here you really want to be honest with yourself. For me, one of the things is, if I am reading a description and it says clean the bathrooms, no matter how cool the job sounds, the reality is, if it says clean the bathrooms, I'm going to be cleaning the bathrooms in that job. And it's like, you know what? That's just not something that I want to sign up for. So I would move on to the next listing. So it's really, what are some of those things? Really reading the description, because they want you to really think about that. And where do you want to go? How do you want to live? When I first started, my first few assignments, I was in my RV, and then actually in Hawaii and also in Chaco, we're going to stay in housing. And it was just for a variety, obviously with Hawaii, we're not going to bring an RV to Hawaii, but it was just for a variety of reasons. And it's like, it worked out fine. But you are living in a house. In Hawaii, we lived in a 3-bedroom house, and there was 4 of us in the house, Doug and myself in one room, and then 2 people in 2 other bedrooms. So it's like, are you okay sharing a house with someone? There's actually backpacking opportunities or backcountry opportunities where you'd live in a tent for a month. So there's lots of different ways, but think about, how do you like to live? And then, do you want to work as part of a team, or do you like to work more by yourself? Do you want to work indoors, outdoors? How much do you want to deal with visitors? Really think about what are those things that draw you to do something like this. And then also, how long do you want to volunteer? And there really are different lengths of time. Oftentimes, they do ask for a 2-month minimum commitment. Some even want 3, 4, or a season. But there also can be shorter volunteer commitments. As a matter of fact, the woman we volunteered with at Arches National Park last year, she last August, was the volunteer ranger on one of the Apostle Islands for 3 weeks. So, that's in our own backyard, and it's a 3-week commitment. So, there's different opportunities available. And so here's some things to think about when you're doing that. The volunteer.gov is it has all the information you need. And I always say, look at the website months before you want to apply. I actually started probably over a year before I wanted to apply. And because most positions are typically published 6 to 12 months out. And as a matter of fact, my first position, I read about it the year before I actually applied for it. And I remember that it was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great job. And I remember that the posting had come out about August. So the next year in the July, August timeframe, I was looking for it and found it. So, and then the other thing, there's lots of great places beyond well-known national parks. And part of it is well-known national parks have lots and lots of visitors, which means that your job will be very, very busy. And, and that may be like, I want to be somewhere that lots and lots is always going on and very demanding. Or maybe you want to go off the beaten path. But I mean, that's the piece that, to think about different places. And so I always say, cast a wide net and then refine. Because I mean, part of it is it's a volunteer job. So you can just read through the listings. You can even put in applications, and it's like nothing ventured, nothing gained. It's not like you need the job to pay next month's rent. So it's kind of fun that way. And then in some of the listings, not all, but some of them actually have a contact with a phone number. And for positions that I've been interested in that I'm truly interested in, I've given a call and asked a couple questions, because it just it's like, yeah, I always figure, well, it can't hurt that they know I'm really interested enough that I'm going to give a call and talk about it. And I tell you this, that they always talk about the downsides of a position in the interview. The first time I interviewed for one of these positions and they started that, I was kind of taken aback, because usually when you go to interview for a company, they don't spend a good portion of your interview telling you all the things you might not like about the company. But they do that because they really want to make sure you know what you're getting into, because it's in your best interest and in their best interest. Because, we all know that national parks are short-staffed. So when you say, yes, I'm going to be there for 3 months to help you out, and you're there 2 months and 2 weeks, and you decide, I'm kind of done, they're stuck. So they want you to know what you're getting into. And then that's why, too, be honest in the interview. You'll be living in the place for weeks or months, and, you want them to know you as you want to know them. And they're pretty, they're truthful about what the job entails. So if there's something in the job that you might say, I'm not sure I want to do that, ask about it and find out about it, because, I think it's just better for everyone that way. So, and then,
Karen, can I just interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
There are 2 questions that have to do with the volunteering. Would you like to hear them now?
Sure.
Okay. So the first one is, can you volunteer and have a dog with you?
I don't know. I would say it would depend. National parks, typically, you can't have dogs on trails and stuff. It may be depending if you're living in an RV. And it also may be, if you're living on BLM land, which allows pets, they might consider it. So I would say it might be agency dependent. I don't know. Because I don't have a pet, I'm not sure if there's a blanket policy, but my guess is it would be probably different agency and depending on living arrangements and those types of things.
And then the second question kind of relates maybe to this slide, but Mark is asking, so lodging is free and you pay for everything else?
So
you're not paid, right? Yeah.
No, you're not. Well, here's the thing. The jobs I have had, I have not been paid. And if you're in an RV, yeah, they'll provide, water, sewer, and electric. There are some jobs, I've seen some different jobs, not so much with national parks, maybe I want to say Department of the Interior, which would be U.S. Forest Service. There are some jobs that would give you a per diem per day for food or might give you gas. And some of those positions are probably more in the backcountry, more out of the way, so that you wouldn't be going into town. You might be a little more getting someplace might be tougher. So yeah, so there I have seen positions where they do offer like a per diem. So volunteer.gov, and this is when I said national parks. As you can see, there's all sorts of different government agencies that have positions that they, that offer, that have volunteer opportunities. And there's, different housing options depending what you might like. And then they also offer all sorts of different activities. And I think as many rovers may know that Barry Schillingford really likes cows. So Barry, I wanted you to know that, in the range livestock, there is actually a position posted right now that you could be a ranch hand at a national park that has a cattle farm for this summer. They're looking for someone. So think about it. So, and then that's
sounds good.
Okay. And so any questions, comments people have now, we'll take them.
We do have a couple comments. I'm going to group them rather than just going through them, but a couple of them had to do with the experiencing the lava and the volcanoes. And so Melissa was wondering, how was the air quality in your lungs during the eruptions?
Okay. That's a great question. Part of the wonderful thing about the way the park was set up, and I don't know if they did it, well, they couldn't have done it on purpose, but Kilauea is very kind to us because the way the winds blow all of the noxious fumes out into an area of the park that's actually closed. And the housing in the park, the employee housing, is on the other side of the crater. So the air quality was good. And actually, so when the Kilauea eruption, actually when Mauna Loa happened, the park had air quality sensors for sulfur dioxide, that sort of thing. And we're monitoring that very closely, and actually had a plan of what we were to do if air quality was going to get bad.
Another question about the volcanoes was the smell.
So, there wasn't, so this is the interesting thing. Not much of a smell, because there is, at Volcanoes Park, and I didn't include it in the presentation, there's steam vents at the park. There's steam vents and sulfur vents. And these vents are basically big old holes in the earth, and down where the magma is, it heats, and so steam comes out of the earth. The steam vents were fine, didn't have any smell, but the sulfur vents, if you went over to visit those, really did have a sulfur smell. So that was really the one area that you really, that smelled noxious fumes. I would say, like when Mauna Loa was erupting, there were warnings on the island, but it was, again, kind of the other side of the island from where we were, and it all had to do with the way the winds were blowing. So
there's another question about the videos that you took. Were they all taken with an iPhone?
yes.
They're all taken.
So the first two of Mauna Loa, those were just taken by an iPhone. They were standing that close to the lava, which kids don't do this at home. The second two videos, they were taken with an iPhone 14. But like I said, we were standing next to this guy was a professional photographer, and he had some super duper lens that he put our phone up against his super duper lens that even got closer, and that's how we were able to get that.
Okay, so there's a question about the road that went through the island, and then the last couple of questions are about the park and some of the things. So is there any effort by business interest to build another road across the island?
No. I mean, the reality is, unfortunately, the island itself is not well off. There isn't the money to build a road. And there really isn't, because Mauna Loa is so big. If you think about that map, there's Mauna Loa, there's Mauna Kea. They have the one saddle road, and then basically you have the outside. You would not build roads. Mauna Loa is still an active volcano, so you would not build anything there. Mauna Kea is a very large, it's a 14,000 foot mountain, and it's considered very sacred to the Hawaiian people. They would not want to build a road going through Mauna Kea. So no, but the reality is to get from one side of the island to the other is a 45-minute trip, 45 minutes to an hour. So you wouldn't save much, and there's not enough traffic to demand more roads.
So there are three more questions that kind of have to do with the park itself.
Okay.
So Mark asks, this is a park, so you can't collect lava samples.
Correct. And I'd like to just give a little color commentary about that, because this is fascinating. There is someone's job at the park to open the boxes that are sent back that show up in the mail just about every day. The park gets back rock that people have collected, and typically the notes are, I think I really upset Pele. I brought home this lava, and something bad's happened in my life, and I want to give it back. Other people are, I know I shouldn't have brought this home. I got home and I just can't show it to anyone because I should not have it. I'm sending it back. So people do this all the time. And even the island of Hawaii gets lava back because people get home and they're convinced that Pele is upset that they took lava off the island, because you can take lava from other places on the island. I mean, you know, if you wanted to, you can certainly do that, but it's a national park and you don't take things out of a national park. But it's just amazing how much rock they get back.
Interesting. Okay, so 2 more questions. Are the lava tubes open to the public, and will the park give locations?
Yes, well, there's one lava tube in the park that's open, the Nahuku lava tube. And so that's open to the public. Actually, the pictures I showed you of the lava tube I was in is actually I believe it's a state park that, yeah, there's, you know, it's a state park and it's open for people to go to.
So the last question is, all the nenes appear to be banded. Does the park study them?
Yes, yep. Clearly there's a birder watching. Yeah, no, actually they try to ban every single nene. And they're studied because they're an endangered species. They're coming back some, but they're still very low numbers. So they have them all registered. And unfortunately, like I said, the nene like parking lots. They also like Crater Rim Drive. Crater Rim Drive is a road in the park that actually goes down to the ocean. And for whatever reason, the nene kind of like to hang out on the edge of the road. Well, the road at times is 50 miles an hour. And so unfortunately, sometimes, you know, they'll use the banding to try to understand which bird may have met its demise. They also do banding to see, you know, if pairs are mating, who's mating, all those types of things. So yes, they're definitely studied.
Thanks for watching this Minnesota Rovers presentation. If you want to see more, please click on the link to our channel or the subscribe button below.